I think, a lot of these matches have shown good tests. I think they're a really good lead up for him.
More than half of his actual ground strokes are backhands, so he's one of those players that actually prefers it on his backhand side, which I suppose is maybe more, I don't know if it's more or less unusual these days, because obviously people are tending to run around the forehand, at least it seems to me, more often. I think they said he's technically had this problem since 2005. It's like a genetic thing combined with specific way of playing tennis.
It's nice to see someone being so successful in terms of consecutive wins and match wins on the female tour, because that is something that can sometimes become frustrating about being a spectator with the women's side of tennis.
Welcome back to the Getting a Grip Tennis podcast. Blue and green this week is the colour theme of choice. Obviously, we're going to be looking back at the week's tennis. Mainly, it's been obviously Rome with another Masters 1000 event. For some reason, they've decided to go back. Well, they always decide to go back to back with Madrid and Rome. We might talk a little bit about that. We'll be reviewing kind of the main matches in the men's side, a little bit of the women's stuff, and just general talking points from that week. Okay, so yeah, let's dig into what's been happening in Rome then. So obviously, if you look at the semi-finals, we have Novak, getting some match practice under his belt. Of course, now getting it, not that he needs loads of it, but obviously he had limited tournaments before, so he's been building up, and obviously he is now in the final. But he was coming up against Casper Ruud in the semi-final, and before that against Auger Aliassime, two actually the Auger Aliassime match was a pretty tight match. One of those kind of epic late Djokovic matches that seems to happen in Rome quite a lot. But he managed to kind of, grind through at least the Auger Aliassime match, winning those key moments, winning that 7-5, 7-6 in the end. What have you made of his progress this week?
I think he's approaching sort of prime Djokovic's style. I mean, we're literally recording this as the final is occurring, and the first set went to Djokovic. He bageled Tsitsipas in that first set. So I think that's a very good sign of where he is at the moment in terms of his winning capabilities, which is good to see on a clay court season, because obviously it keeps everything competitive, which is really nice. I think, a lot of these matches have shown good tests. I think they're a really good lead up for him. We could talk about how that's going to set him up for the French Open, the next time when we preview that entire tournament. But yeah, I think he's looking good. He's looking smooth and mechanical, as he always is.
Yeah, it's just a solid all-round game, isn't it, really? And obviously the mental edge that he has over most of these guys, probably seeing it now with this final that's going on against Tsitsipas. Obviously, he came from 2 sets down last year in the French to beat him. So I'd imagine that plays some, even if it's just a little part of Tsitsipas' psyche, it does play, and it's better to have beaten him in the past than not to have. So obviously it has a little bit of an effect. I would be surprised if he doesn't close out the win. They're in a tie-break in the second set now. So
tie-break in the second set, it's very, very likely. I mean, he's come through tough matches against some characters who are on some great form at the moment anyway. I think, Auger Aliassime, he's certainly making a name for himself, and Casper Ruud, who you dubbed a potential nearly man, a Burdick of the recent times, as it were. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, basically someone that reaches a lot of semi-finals and finals but never quite makes it. It's similar to Tim Henman, actually.
It's no terrible thing, but because
it's no terrible thing, but it's to get that far and deep in so many tournaments and then never to quite end up, on the outer edge and winning a lot of them. It can be quite tough.
And obviously we've got some of the other main guys in the draw this week have obviously been Tsitsipas, who's in the final now, and Zverev. Obviously clay seems to be one of his more favoured surfaces, especially in warmer conditions, because he's got huge power off that backhand specifically. I remember looking at the stats in the Tsitsipas match that he was playing, and it was more than half of his actual ground strokes are backhands. So he's one of those players that actually prefers it on his backhand side, which I
Yeah.
suppose is maybe more. I don't know if it's more or less unusual these days because obviously people are tending to run round the forehand. At least it seems to me more often than in the
Yeah.
past.
Well, courts are starting to slow down now. A lot of tournaments have found that, if you have these insanely quick courts, it doesn't play out too well in terms of, like, the length of matches, the length of points, and spectators do want to see some longevity and that sort of thing. So I think you'll see that as well with, like, running around shots. If the ball's coming over slower, you've got more time, even a fraction of a second more time to just nip around the ball and hit an inside out forehand, which inevitably is always a nicer shot for a lot of people.
Obviously, the other thing we haven't talked about is Nadal and his foot injury again. Something that he's had since he was like a teenager. Really, it was. I think they said he's technically had this problem since like 2005. It's like a genetic thing combined with like specific way of playing tennis, which means I don't know something in his tarsal in his foot that's like just causes him an issue with his movement. I think specifically maybe with like stopping. Obviously, if you're stopping, you're putting pressure on the front part of your foot. So he struggled, especially after that first set against Dennis, and everyone was getting quite worried that like, what does this mean for the French or whatever. And then he came out in the press conference and said, I just live with injuries. So do
Yeah.
you think he's just deliberately playing it down, or to be honest, I can't see this not being an issue in the French Open, given that it's only a week away and it's all the matches are best of five. I don't know what you think.
I think the nature of recovery these days, you can get over things a lot faster and you can manage things a lot better. However, if it's affecting him now, I'm going to agree with you. I'd say that it's probably going to play a part in the French Open, and to be honest, again, it's one of these adversities that he's going to overcome probably, and we're probably all going to go, oh wow, I can't believe he's done that with a dodgy foot and all that sort of stuff, but. Again, we never know. I'd definitely be looking at Djokovic as a bit more of a favourite, at least in current form, and the fact that he has now just won Rome.
Yeah.
7-5 in that final tiebreak, didn't give Tsitsipas a chance even on his own serve. So, yeah, again, that form is definitely there in order to make a good run. And interestingly, I've got some good stats later in the quiz about Djokovic's form in the French Open, specifically against Nadal as well.
Okay. Another
He's quite
another
impressive.
question I'll definitely get wrong, but I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting that wrong. I'm being educated. Thank you. Um, so that yeah.
It's basically a Djokovic quiz later. So
Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. So yeah, that is mainly like the men's side. Obviously, we'll preview the French next week, as it's literally
indeed,
that'll be like a
indeed.
couple of days before the main kind of draw commences. If we just quickly look at the women's side, I mean, where else or who else are we going to talk about other than Iga Swiatek, who's on this
Yeah,
ridiculous run? 28 successive wins now, and that's her fourth Masters title this year alone. And I can't remember how many bagels she's given out, but it seems to be at least like one every couple matches, which is pretty crazy. And she had a pretty tough opponent in the final on current form, on Jabeur, who won in Madrid, and she just, fairly easily swatted her aside. I think it was 2-2. So her form is just incredible. I think the thing I've noticed the most about it is just how early she's taking the ball and how aggressive she is. Obviously, it's
yeah,
maybe well, I don't know if it's a more difficult thing to do on clay because obviously you've got to have the consistency to do it for
yeah.
longer rallies than you would on faster hard courts of grass. But she's just kept up this incredible consistency and this aggression, which is like no one can live with her, and obviously the movement as well.
Yeah, well,
It's
it,
incredible.
it, it does all depend as well. Like, when you talk about clay, it does depend. Like, women's game and the men's game slightly different, and that aggressive style does suit women slightly better on the clay. Just because, again, like, there's a height of the ball. The way they play the ball is different as well because certain things are more advantageous for them. So I think there are a lot of positives to see this from, and like I say, it's nice to see someone. being so successful in terms of consecutive wins and match wins on the female tour, because that is something that can sometimes become frustrating about being a spectator with the women's side of tennis, is because you literally can't tell who's going to win. It's nice to back someone, but it is, again, sometimes it's nice to not know. Sometimes it's nice to be, just grateful to be watching the tennis. So, like, again, it depends what side of the fence you're on, but it's really nice to see Iga Swiatek doing so well.
Yeah, I think you do need a champion, or at least like a few champions. As much as people say, "Oh, it's boring that they're always winning," you need that dynamic so that you can put yourself in like a camp, because it's all kind of at the end of the day. You need the people,
and we love an underdog match as well.
exactly.
We love a grudge match where the underdog starts winning and stuff like that. It all makes big things for the fans.
Yeah, exactly. It enables people to either, support the champion, someone who's winning, or people to back the underdog, whoever is against that person. So I think it definitely, well, I would be surprised if it doesn't bring more eyes to the game, because
well, this is it as well. Like, women's tennis does suffer sometimes from, how many people are spectating relative to the men's game. And this is often used as the argument of, they shouldn't be paid as much, etc., because they don't bring in as much in terms of spectator money. But, when you have players that are winning a lot more, obviously they get a little bit more notoriety. That brings more people to that side of the game, because more people are, going to back a star, sort of thing. So, it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and it obviously provides like a role model for younger women looking to take up tennis or whatever, because obviously when we talk about how we got into tennis, obviously we look at the men's side. For me, Federer; for you, Murray. If they hadn't have been so consistent and winning a lot of tournaments, then may not have even taken up tennis had it just been like a free-for-all and you don't know who's going to win. So I think every now and again it's okay to not know who's going to win, but I think you do need that kind of baseline champion or set of champions. Because I think it's
playing and spectating tennis exactly the same. You need some consistency.
Yeah, God, which we didn't exactly. We didn't exactly.
That's where you're going to put like a little little banner and a little bit of music, and it just goes Merlin's moral of the day.
God. Yes. Well, we haven't exactly been practicing what we preach, because I don't think we were exactly consistent in our last doubles match. But anyway. We'll look to improve on that next time.
Hey, we still ground out a win. It's fine.
Yeah, consistent in terms of wins, maybe not in terms of like how we're playing the points.
It's true.
Yeah, it just shows how tough it is. And like we were saying with Djokovic, like he needed the match practice in Belgrade, even though he didn't win it, and he obviously looked a little bit sluggish, and he wasn't necessarily match fit enough to play, the full 3 sets at full intensity. Now you're really seeing the benefit of all that practice, and obviously you'll see it into the French Open. Okay, here we go. Another week of tennis trivia. I'm in the hot seat this week, getting grilled on my tennis knowledge.
I would like to know, I can't remember, I'm a little bit out of practice with my memory. What was my score last time? How did I do? Oh, silence. That can't be good.
High five. Yes, you got.
Yeah, so obviously Ben is now coming into this quiz, not doing too well in terms of loss to win ratio now compared to my side. I've had a couple of consecutive 5s and just some high scoring quizzes. Complete luck on the last one. Don't know how I managed it. You put one question in at the end that you thought would be the nice question, which it absolutely was, because you thought I'd tank all the others. So perfectly happy with how that quiz went. Anyway, we've got a new quiz this week. We've got something a little bit different. We're going to take a nice big focus on one player. Not that every question will be completely focused on that player, but they'll have played a part in everything. But basically, I'm going to start with my first question, and I hope it's a nice one. Only one player, considering we're just talking about Rome this week, which is a Masters 1000 title, only one player has won each of the 9 different Masters 1000 titles. And if you didn't know this already, those of you that are listening, there are only 9 Masters 1000 titles throughout the year, which makes it even more insane that 2 of them are literally week after week, with Rome and Madrid just before the clay court Grand Slam that is the French Open. I think that's the reason why, because they like it as a warm-up. but still, in terms of points, it's quite brutal. Anyway, who has won each of those 9 Masters 1000 titles? And it's only one player in history. Your 4 options are Jimmy Connors, Roger Federer, Andy Murray, or Novak Djokovic.
Okay, well, I have no clue about Jimmy Connors, to no surprise, given that I wasn't really watching tennis or alive at that point. So
yes, that doesn't help.
Probably not going to say him just because I have no idea. Federer, Murray, Djokovic. Well, to be honest, I would be slightly surprised if Federer hadn't won them all, but then I think he wasn't he wasn't super strong on clay. Obviously, he was still good, but it wasn't his strongest surface. Then again, in his earlier years, he didn't really have like Djokovic and Nadal to play against. So, did that help him? I was going to ask, do you know what the 9 different events are? But then that's probably...
Oh, God, that's a tough one. Yeah, I'm not sure I know all of them. I know a good deal of them. I reckon we could work it out with a little bit of head-scratching. But
we've obviously got Miami, Indian Wells, Madrid, Rome,
Paris,
Shanghai.
Yeah.
And, okay.
I think Delhi's one of them as well.
Where?
Delhi? I think Delhi's one of them, isn't it? No, is that 500? Maybe not.
I don't think it is. Okay, but it is it's split between clay and hard, isn't it? Really, mainly hard,
Yeah.
no grass.
Yeah.
I think just because of his all-round game, I'm just gonna have to go with Djokovic, but I'm not really sure.
You are correct. Well done. And it is at this point that I will announce that this is a Novak Djokovic quiz. So pretty much all of these questions will centre around the success that Novak Djokovic has had, given that at the moment of recording, and only 10 minutes before I'm asking these very questions, Novak Djokovic has indeed actually won in Rome. So, obviously an impressive character. He's on an impressive form. I'm going to, as I speak now, update one of my answers to a question, which is just here. And I'm going to ask my second question is, how many ATP Tour Masters 1000 titles has Djokovic won? Okay, and we have 4 options here, sorry, not 3. The first is 29, 38, 39, or 43.
29, 38, did you say? 39 or 43?
39 or 43. Quite right.
Jeez.
How many Masters 1000 titles?
Can I science this a bit or maths it? 9 a year. 9 a year. He's been pretty amazing for at least 10 of those 15 years maybe that he's been pro, or whatever, how long it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is tough.
Bear in mind, the top 4 have not always been those to prevail.
No, true.
In Masters 1000 titles. This is how the top 10 forms. Is a lot of them end up getting a Masters 1000 somewhere, just like Alcaraz picking up Madrid.
29. Oh, I feel like 43 is just too high. 29, I'm not sure about. It seems to ring a bell. But then, do I just go down the middle? I'm going to go with... God. 38 seems too high, though. I'll go with 38. I don't really know why.
38. You are correct. Well done. Oh. Before, obviously, his Rome win, literally just now, it was 37, which is what I had to update, but he has won an incredible now 38 ATP Tour Masters 1000 titles in his career.
Is that more than Nadal? Who's got the most, do you know?
I believe it's Djokovic who has the most, which is obviously quite impressive. And it means that this is, obviously another career title that he can take in his quest to be the GOAT, and his quest to prove to everyone that he is the best. Perhaps he wouldn't have had to take so long to do it if certain political statements weren't made at different times. But still, very impressive. So, continuing the theme of Novak Djokovic. Djokovic, on clay is actually a very successful player, and I think without the presence of Rafael Nadal, you would have seen a very, very, very successful clay court player that was also dominating on the hard courts. Djokovic is only the second player, however, to beat Rafael Nadal at the French Open. And of course, there have only been two players, which are the one that I'm going to ask you who it is, and obviously Novak Djokovic. He's also managed it twice, and the only person to do it in straight sets, which is, again, very impressive, given that this is Rafael Nadal's tournament, effectively.
I think that was in 2015 or 14, wasn't it, when he beat him in straight? I don't think Nadal wasn't completely fit, maybe, but...
Anyway, who was the first to overcome Nadal at Roland Garros? You have four options again. The first is Robin Soderling. Second is Radek Stepanek. The third is Leighton Hewitt. And the fourth is Tim Henman. What do you think?
I'm smiling because I know the answer. For once.
What's the answer?
Oh, it's the Swedish legend that is Robin Soderling. I think he's Swedish.
You are correct. Well done. So you're on 3 out of 3 at the moment. Yes, it is Robin Soderling. This is a little bit of a stat that it's hard to miss because it gets brought up every time Rafael Nadal turns up at the French Open. Oh, look, only 2 people have ever managed to beat him, and it's only managed to have happened 3 times at Roland Garros. Obviously, he's won it a ridiculous amount of times.
I think that was in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, when
I believe you're
that's
right.
when Federer went on to win his only French. That's why I was so happy.
That's right. Yeah.
That one time. Oh my god.
So, like I say, a lot of these players that take out the reigning champions at tournaments, they don't go on to win it because there's always another of the big four that was there to take their place, effectively. But no, that's basically what happened with Djokovic's clay court record. It's obviously very impressive, and without Rafael Nadal, even with Rafael Nadal, it's very successful. The next question number 4. You're on 100% so far. Let's see if we can keep it going. Novak Djokovic won his first Grand Slam title in 2008 at the Australian Open. Which player did he beat in the final? And that smile does tell me that you might know the answer to this question. Anyway, you've got 4 answers here. Your first is Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Second is Andy Murray. Third is Rafael Nadal. And the fourth is Roger Federer. What's the answer?
Ah, yes. Another one that I do actually know. Making me feel quite good this week. I think we've mentioned this on a podcast before. It is, the Frenchman himself, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga.
Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Another nearly man, we could arguably say, in terms of Grand Slam records. Jo-Wilfried Tsonga was always close to the top. He stayed in that top sort of 6 for a long time. He and Burdick were always flirting around the edges of the top 4, every now and then even making it into the top 4 in the early days before Murray consolidated his place as the inescapable number 4, as he will always probably be known. But yes, it is indeed Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Well, you're also an incredible run this week. I mean, 4 out of 4 so far. That's quite impressive, given your previous record.
People forget how young Novak was when he won that. I think he was only like 20. Obviously, Rafa won the French when he was 19, and Federer won Wimbledon when he was maybe 21 or 22. But now, if someone won it at that age, it'd be like if Alcaraz won it.
It would be crazy.
Yeah, it'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
But Alcaraz could possibly pull it off, and that's one thing that I think we've got to look for. Anyway, when we talk about the French Open next week. So we have 4 out of 4, and we have our final and 5th question. And I have a sneaky feeling that this rather nice question, that's rather recent news, may be a good one for you. So obviously Novak Djokovic is a controversial character. He's had, obviously, anti-vax sentiment forced upon him. He's not explicitly said it before, but obviously he's been associated with this many times. But he's also been known to be a little bit controversial on the court, and in fact been defaulted before at the US Open. This was in 2020. Who was his opponent when he was defaulted at the US Open in 2020? You've got 4 options here. The first is Feliciano Lopez, which, incidentally, there is an interview with Judy Murray, or the Murray brothers as well, where we work out that apparently Judy Murray calls Feliciano Lopez Deliciano Lopez because she thinks he's quite attractive. I always find that funny.
Shudder.
Anyway, the second option here is Roberto Bautista Agut. The third option is Pablo Carreño Busta. And the fourth option is Dominic Thiem. What do we think the answer is?
Ooh. I did think Thiem initially, but now I'm doubting it a little bit. I'm trying to think, was it like quarters or semis or something? When was it? Ooh. I'm torn between Bautista Agut and Thiem. I feel like it was maybe too early to be Thiem.
Gonna have to pick one.
I'm gonna bottle it, aren't I? I'm so close to getting 5 for the first time, and I'm just questioning myself. Oh, I'm gonna go with. I'll just go with my gut. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be annoyed at myself. I'll be annoyed at myself anyway if I get it wrong. But I'll go with Dominic Thiem.
Well, you're a competitive guy, and it was only fair that you'll feel a little bit disappointed to find out that you need to get a grip. Unfortunately, you weren't even right with who you were tossing it up between.
Right, okay.
It was, in fact, Pablo Carreño Busta, who, in fact, in 2020 and 2021 had obviously his incredible run of form, started to pick up some more tournament wins and getting into the deeper stages of tournaments. He's flown a little bit off the radar recently in terms of top 20 wins and top 10 and deep tournament runs. But yeah, it was indeed Pablo Carreño Busta. Do you know why Djokovic was defaulted?
Did he hit someone with a ball or his racket? I can't remember which it was.
Yeah, so he decided to hit a ball really hard because that's what you do when you're frustrated, quite easy, and it hit one of the line umpires, who is a woman who there are plenty of memes and pictures on the internet of how upset she looked. But then again, these sorts of things, like if it was a serve, no one would have thought much of it, and it probably would have been a harder shot as well. So it's one of these rules where, yes, he should have been more tempered in his control. Pablo Carreño Busta was actually winning that set when Djokovic did it. He was up 6-5, and it was his turn to serve. Djokovic was frustrated, naturally, and obviously launched this ball, which is interesting that we talk about it. Obviously, Djokovic was defaulted at the US Open for this. But when Denis Shapovalov did a similar thing, I can't remember which tournament it was. I believe it was a Davis Cup tie. When Denis Shapovalov fired a ball in anger and hit the chair umpire in the face, there was a lot of controversy over whether he was going to be defaulted for that as well. So obviously it begs the question of should there be any set standards across these tournaments? But that's an argument for another day.
Yeah, I suppose it can be a little bit of a grey area. It depends. I don't know how you're hitting the ball or the
line umpire that Djokovic hit wasn't injured, whereas the one that Denis Shapovalov hit had to have surgery because
really
he fractured his eye socket. So from how hard he hit that ball. So yeah, it's a rough game out there when people get frustrated on a tennis court, which is pretty common. I think you'll find, especially when we're playing some league matches.
I'm surprised you didn't just launch a ball somewhere.
No, I know not to go over the top there. I just sort of let my voice go. That's where I go.
Up all the old people who are trying to sleep.
Yeah. You can't have a match near any houses when I'm playing. So
that was another thing. That was something we didn't mention actually. Or that we look forward to in the French Open. Well, look forward to maybe the wrong word. Dennis having a meltdown because he had another one this week where
he did indeed
he stepped over the net. I mean, he must have known that you can't do that to question a line call, and then obviously he already had a previous warning, so then he ended up losing that point, which meant he lost the game, and then the crowd were getting right into him, and he basically told the crowd to F off, which was
shut the F up. It was That's right.
Yes.
And it's quite obvious. It's not like it was a subtle thing under his breath. He was looking around, shouting it. So
He literally turned around to the whole crowd.
yeah.
And then there was
yeah.
there was some guy shouting at him, and he was like trying to get the umpire to get him kicked out or whatever, and the umpire was just like, I didn't see it, mate. Probably just couldn't be arsed with it. But
No. No.
yeah. So,
I think again there are a lot of things. Shapovalov is an interesting player actually, because sometimes he looks so cool and tempered, and sometimes he completely loses his rag. Which again, it begs the question: is it scheduling? Is he is it a stress that relates to it? That's part of the reason that pushes some people over the edge. But or should they even be allowed to act like that in the first place at all? So
no.
yeah, he went on to win that match actually. So
He did, yeah, but I mean, I think he does get away with it a little bit. I remember in the Australian Open when he was playing against Nadal, and he called the umpire or all of the umpires corrupt or something, and he has loads of different outbursts.
Nothing like Daniil Medvedev and his little meltdown at the what was it? Was that the US Open or the Australian Open?
What happened there? Can I remember?
Oh, where he was in the semi-final and he went straight off on the what was it, on the chair umpire, and he says you're umpiring a semi-final of a Grand Slam, and you're this rubbish. I don't understand how you're this rubbish. And then he shouts at him, "Look at me when I'm talking to you."
Yeah, look at me.
Yeah,
I am your master. Look at me. I remember that. Yeah, okay. He went full like dictator mode.
yeah. But again, if an umpire is, we have talked about this, touched on this subject about umpires, and obviously the corrupt framework within which this can often be set, especially in tennis. Maybe they're not good enough. Maybe they're not good enough at the top level, and maybe player frustration is just a talking point by which we need to change something.
Yeah, I think it's the players knowing that they're not good enough, or like there's things that are going on that shouldn't be going on, and that they
right. I think that's true, and they're not going to be able to say it publicly because they're told they can't. So
yeah, it's an interesting one. See how that develops. Anyway, okay, I've improved at least this week. 4 out of 5 is
4 out of 5 is a respectable 80%. You'd get a first at degree level.
Well, thank you. That's what really matters. I think I've done enough degrees. I don't want to think about that anymore.
Oh yeah, no, not in tennis quizzes, no.
Degree in tennis quiz as well. No, yeah, I don't know how that would go. I think I'd just give up after like a couple of days, given my previous record. But anyway, yeah. If you have enjoyed this, obviously give it a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. On YouTube, give the video a like, share it around, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And we will see you next week for what's mainly probably going to be a French Open preview. See you then.